Nothing is ever the same. Changing houses. Changing faces. Different bedrooms. Different beds. And this trash bag filled with everything I have. I don't want to feel alone anymore.
Today, about 135,000 children are adopted in America every year, from the foster care system, private domestic agencies, family members, and other countries.
My name is Delia Moreno, and this is my adoption story. I was born in a city, I think I was born like right outside of LA, and my mom was Japanese and my dad was Mexican. Both of my parents knew like they had to put me up for adoption. My dad, from what I've heard, was not the best. He was a drug addict. He was in gangs and he drank a lot and he was just, not the best. And my mom, she was the same. Never talked to them personally, but from what they've told me, drugs, just not the best. They were in and out of jail, both of them. So I guess I was put up for adoption, and my brother, my half-brother, Nicholas, I guess me and him were best friends, and he was really like all I had at the time, and he was just like my everything, my only family. And I really, really loved him, or I still do, of course I love him. And we were best friends and everything, but it's just not the same, We barely talk, and I feel like, he's doing his own thing. He's 22, 21. I'm 16. Yeah, we don't talk anymore, and I feel like every time we do talk, he kind of pushes away. He doesn't really try to hang out or anything. He obviously texts me and he's like, "Oh, I hope you're doing good" and all that, but we haven't seen each other in forever, and I think that really sucks. I lost my first best friend, and I lost my brother, and that sucks, but I think, what can you do? That's what happens. We were separated. I was put into foster care, and I think he went to go live with his grandma. That's kind of scary, like you only have one family, and like they separate you. And I had a social worker, and what a social worker is she's the one who looks for a family for you. I remember she would just pick me up, and we would go from house to house. I would spend like a bit of time with one family and then move on to the next. And I remember most of the houses were like really abusive, and I remember this one time I went into this house and it was so bad. This lady, she had like a bunch of kids, and she would beat me. I always threw tantrums, and I was like bad. I would cry all the time. So one time she put me in a bathing suit and ran cold water in the shower, and she took a beetle, because we lived in like a really rural area. She took a beetle from outside, I guess, and she put it in the tub with me, and she made me stay there. Obviously a beetle is not going to kill me, but it was just so traumatizing as a child to like be in that situation. It was one of those situations, and I remember in the same home I had two older siblings, foster siblings that molested me. And at the time I did not really understand it. I didn't think it was right. I didn't like it, but I didn't really think it was wrong. I was like, you know, when you're a kid, you really don't know what's going on, and that was just how that was. So it was an older guy and a younger girl, and they both molested me in the same home. And so that was one of the houses I went to. And the other house I went to, I can only really remember 2 houses. The other house I went to was this trailer home. And this lady, she also had a bunch of kids because they usually want to adopt so that the government gives them money. And just remember her husband, he was so creepy. Like I think if I would have stayed there, he would have probably just done a bunch of bad things. You know, he was just, you can tell, he made me really uncomfortable, you know. And then I remember in one time in her house, she got really abusive too. She would like just the pettiest things, you know. One time I was showering and she was like, "Oh, you're not scrubbing hard enough," and she grabbed the sponge and started like scratching my skin, and I was naked, and I felt, even though I was a kid, I just felt so embarrassed, and like I felt really bad. When you're growing up, you don't really know, you know, when you're in that situation. I remember the car rides I had with my social worker, and how I would sit in the back in a car seat, and she would take me to a bunch of different places with a bunch of different people, and I never questioned it. I never understood that I didn't have like parents, you know. It was just, this is my life, you know. As I grew up, I started to realize the situation more and more, and I didn't really feel sorry for myself. I didn't feel like sad or anything. As time goes on, you kind of, you know, question everything, and you know, the main thing with me was always, you know, like why couldn't I stay? Because my mom, she had two other kids, and she kept them, and she left me. And the same with my dad, he had other kids, and he just, I guess me being the youngest, I had to be the one to be put up for adoption. I remember when I got adopted by my current family, I remember walking in, because all these other houses, they were just trash, they were garbage, and I remember walking into this house, and I was like, the first thing I noticed was the smell. I still remember the smell to this day. It was so warm, and like, I'd never walked into a home and actually felt like I was at home, you know? And I remember they were, these people, these 2 parents and my sister, they welcomed me in, and I remember they were playing the movie Winnie the Pooh on TV, and I was just sitting with these complete strangers watching a movie, and I just felt like I had a family. With these complete strangers, I just felt like it just felt right. It didn't feel wrong. And I remember we played like a few board games or whatever, and we were just downstairs playing a few board games. So they finally took me upstairs, which was, at the time I had to share a room with my sister. Not that I was, oh my god, I have to share a room with this person, but I was really grateful. They had, it was like, I've never had a room like that, you know. I've always had like really shitty rooms, or I had to share. But this room was all pink. I had never had pink walls, and I just remember they had a pink bed set and pink walls, and they had princess stuff all around, and I was just like, I had never been in such a nice house, you know. And they were like, this is this is your room if you want it. And it was weird because at that point I was not adopted. I was just staying there for a few, just to like, you know, I was just visiting actually. I went back to the trailer house the same exact day, but they had already had a room for me, and that was just amazing. And it was just the most girly little girl room I have ever seen, and I've never had anything like that. I don't know, I just knew at that point, even though I was so young, I knew like, wow, I really want this to be my home. You know, I love these people and I don't even know them and I just met them. I started crying, like I did not want to leave. I wanted them to be with me for the longest time. I wanted to stay, and I loved it. And so they gave me this picture. It was my mom, my adoptive mom, my adoptive dad, and my adoptive sister, and they were in Cancun, and they had like parrots flying on their heads, and like I think my dad was holding one or something, and they were carrying my little sister in their arms. And I remember they gave it to me, and I slept with it that night. I slept with it, and I waited for them to come back for me. And as time went by, they started taking me in more and everything, and I kind of, you know, spent more time with them. I was in my sister's room. I was in our room, actually. Now we have separate rooms, but I was in our room, which is not my sister's room. And I remember that I asked my sister, I was like, is it okay if I call Betty, which is my adoptive mom's name, Betty? I asked her, is it okay if I call Betty Mom? Is it okay if I call your mom Mom? Because I want a mom too. And I was like, I really want to call your mom my mom. And she was like, yeah, that's okay. And so I was so happy, and I ran downstairs, and I remember my grandma was sitting on the table, sitting at the table, not on the table. She was sitting at the table, and my mom was cooking something in the kitchen, and I ran up to her and I was like, Betty, can I call you Mom? And she just, I think that melted her heart, because she just gave me the biggest hug, and I think she cried or something, and my grandma was also very emotional, and she was like, of course you can call me Mom, I'm your mom. And I felt really, really good that day, and that day I knew like, this is where I'm gonna be, this is my home now.